Singing Dutchman Productions. Hello and welcome to Doug's Front Porch, a podcast where I get to sit down with friends, old and new, and have honest conversations. Today I welcome to the front porch Matt Maris, and I have to be honest, I don't know Matt all that well. Out of all the guests I've had on the podcast so far, he's the person that I've gotten to know most recently. So I'm so glad, Matt, that you came on, and welcome to the front porch.
Thanks, Doug. Happy to be with you tonight, and I appreciate you having me on your podcast here.
Great. Yeah. Well, give the listeners a little background. I got to know Matt just within the last couple of months because I took one of his walking tours, his walking history tours, and that's going to be a big part of our discussion this evening. His side business, so to speak. So we're not going to talk about that right now. But I took his walking tour, and I think we hit it off pretty well. And I found him to have a fascinating story, and I definitely wanted to share his story with everybody listening. And I'm just so glad that we're able to do that tonight. So, Matt, let's go all the way back to give people a little bit of some background knowledge. You're not originally from Central Pennsylvania. That's right.
Right. Yeah, I'm from North Carolina. I grew up about an hour north of Charlotte, near Lake Norman, that kind of area. And then I ended up, long story short, ending up in Lock Haven. I went to Lock Haven University to become a teacher. I did some wrestling there, so I think wrestling kind of brought me to Pennsylvania. Really good wrestling up here, and met a Pennsylvania girl, and I'm here to stay. I love it here, and yeah, now I live in Bellefonte.
So, another proud LHU alumnus here myself.
Right.
What was it? What was it about? I mean, that's a distance. You know, a lot of the students at LHU and a lot of the state schools tend to be, from Pennsylvania or from at least the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York area. So, how did you, growing up in North Carolina, even come to know about Little Lock Haven in the middle of nowhere, central Pennsylvania?
Right. Yeah, good question. My high school wrestling coach in North Carolina, which is someone I really looked up to, he went to Clarion. He wrestled at Clarion University, I think in the 70s. And he was an art teacher for me and a coach for me. And he used to bring us him and his son, which was my best friend, Jimmy. He used to take us all the way to Clarion, to Penn State wrestling camps, to Lock Haven wrestling camps, because that's where some of the best wrestling is. And I loved it up here, and I loved the hills and the old town. I was from like suburbia, North Carolina, so me seeing this history up here, I always loved it. And when I had the opportunity to go here, I was all about it.
That's great. So, so it sounds like history was always something that you were interested in, even from your childhood on.
Yeah, but I definitely got more and more into it and have gotten in deep into it now. I'm in deep, so there's no coming back. But yeah, I think as you're a teacher, so you probably you see in your in my own experience too that you kind of appreciate these things as you get older. I did like
Mm.
history as a young person, but the more and more you learn about anything, the more you learn to value it. I'm really in deep now.
So you graduated from Lock Haven. Did you get a teaching job right away?
Kind of. I did some subbing a little bit. My wife got a job first in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, and we went there. And then I was subbing kind of while she was working, and then she taught English for a while, and she also went to Lock Haven. And then I got a job in Red Line in York County, Pennsylvania, and we made the decision to go down there, and we loved it down there. We were there for about 5 years, and I taught high school social studies. And then we were a good bit from our family, a good 4 hours from any family down there. So we liked it, but we wanted to get closer to family. So when Bellefonte had an opening, we jumped on it.
Yeah, and here you are. You've
Hmm.
been teaching high school social studies or middle school social studies?
High school, yeah, I've been just kind of in that age range and this is my 11th year teaching
Okay.
various social studies at the high school level.
So now that you've been teaching, teenagers for a couple of years, do you find that most kids uh, find history interesting, or is it like pulling teeth with them to get them interested in it?
Yeah, it's kind of both. A lot of times it's the latter where they're not sure what they like. There are your history buffs. You do get the kid who comes in here and who knows more than I do about World War II, and I think that's awesome. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about Panzer tanks. That's cool, and I love that. I love seeing that. But the majority of kids um, aren't really sure what they like, I think, and then especially history. But I like that challenge. I like kind of kind of being almost like evangelical about it and saying like, trying to get them to appreciate what I appreciate, and at least maybe inspire them to like it a little bit, with those good
So
stories.
what how do you approach that? Like what's a
Mm.
tool of your in your tool belt that you might try to use if you got, a half of a classroom full of kids that just think history's a bunch of old dead people. Why do we have to learn about that? How's one way that you approach history to make it interesting for those teenagers?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's a lot of the same stories that I tell on tours is like it's those stories that shock people a little bit that like you can't make this up. Like, are you serious? Did this happen? Or maybe it's a little disturbing, or maybe it's a little make you tear up a little bit. I think we're humans and we like when things pull at our emotions. Not that I'm trying to make people cry, but like I think a lot of teachers aren't willing to um, do that or to try to really pull the kids in with an engaging story, and they just are so focused on the content, which is important too. Uh, but I think it's the stories, the human story, the connections, and that works regardless of what field you're in. I think with education,
I agree. I think, and I think I said this to you one time when we had a conversation about, you know, the great thing that I've always loved about history is that it's a set of stories, and I think there's nothing more human than storytelling.
right?
Uh, we can and you can connect on it on so many levels, not just thinking, visioning in your mind what's happening in the story you're being told, but there's so many instances in stories that you connect in ways that you don't even think you're connecting, whether it's the part of the story might have food involved, and that food connection might be something that brings
Right.
somebody in, or just emotion, like you mentioned. Yeah, as tough as teenagers might be to work with sometimes, they are all human. At least I've found in my career. And I often, it's the same thing that I battle. I got to get kids interested in a language, teaching German for the most part of my day, that they really don't need to learn. I mean, the average kid growing up in Pennsylvania doesn't need to know German, but it's through making those human connections and the storytelling that I get a lot of kids interested in a language and in something that they don't need to really necessarily, study. Now, of course, history is something that I think we all do need to study. In your opinion, right now, are we, as looking at it from like the state perspective and from education perspective, minus COVID and everything that's going on, are we doing a good job at teaching history to kids?
That's a good question too. I think I guess I'll take an easy answer with that. I guess it's like as a state you asked. I think we're doing okay, but I like how honestly I like how social studies is not test driven, and I'll just go ahead and say that. So it's not,
Yeah, sure.
and I think that allows the freedom for teachers to have the autonomy to teach things. So I do like that. I think and other subjects can't say that necessarily, and they're
Mhm.
doing a good job too. But maybe they can't engage the kids. They don't have the luxury to engage like with the freedoms that I do. So I think something's happening correctly in the state level to allow that at this point.
What do you think we could be doing better from an education perspective in regards to social studies?
Well, um, I think that's a tough one. I don't know. I think I know I can only really speak from my district, or not I
Sure,
can't
right.
speak my experience is the what I meant to say, not for my district, but I think that sometimes, we miss things, and I think there's not enough local history, and that's maybe my
Mm,
biased perspective, but there's not enough state history, there's not enough local history, and I think that kids get lost in, and that's another reason why I'm so into local history is that it is that connection. That key word is connecting, and if you're not going to connect with a subject, um, it's hard to really want to learn it. So either, however we can do it as teachers, but local history and state history is like, oh, I lived there, oh, I've been there, or my uncle lives there, or my grandfather fought in that regiment. So
mhm.
there's a real connection that can be made, and they can really value learning, not just history, but oh, I want to learn something. And I think we miss the mark sometimes by getting too um I don't know, just trying to cover too much or something like that. I don't know. So I think that's one thing we could do more of. And I think some districts do that really well, and some, are like, hey, I've never had a Pennsylvania State history course, or I did it a little bit, and and I don't remember much. So that's one
Right,
area.
right. I agree with you 100%. I think, in a lot of aspects, I personally would like to see us doing more social studies at the younger levels
Sure.
and even getting, politics, or like civics and those types of basic things getting in the elementary level, I think, and setting a foundation. And maybe some districts do that across the state. I can only speak for, like you said, the examples that I've seen where in the places where I've taught, but I would personally, and I think, little kids could get into that stuff just as much as older kids. In fact,
Sure.
maybe little kids would get into it even more. I don't know,
Yeah,
just thinking off
absolutely.
the top of my feet. Well, this is a
Oh, yeah.
perfect transition into talking about what you do when you're not in the classroom. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I got to know Matt by taking one of his walking history tours of Bellefonte, which is a town here in central Pennsylvania, a really pretty Victorian era town. So you started your own history walking tour company called Local Historia. Talk a little bit about that. How did that come about to be, where'd you get the idea from? How did you go about doing this?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been fun. Really, I started probably with field trips, just going into town, and I'm fortunate enough to live in a really historic town like Bellefonte. And it itself kind of inspired me, and I was realizing, wow, there's so much here to learn about. And I'm, there's a life. I feel like even just Center County history there's a life time of learning that I could do, and that I need to learn. I have my homework, but anyways, I started doing random field trips into town with different classes and learning the local history myself. And then I like the process. I mean, as a teacher, I like teaching, and especially, you've been on field trips, and those field trips are just a unique experience where something about just getting out of the classroom and seeing something and walking and looking around and socializing a little bit is just really good for learning. So I like that. And then I started doing it for the Center County Library. They were offering free tours, and they asked me if I could do the tours with them, and I did that last summer, and I really enjoyed doing that. So I just love um, giving walking tours. So it's like I say, a songbird's got to sing, and I just like to do it. So local Historia was just a way of me being able to do that independently and not have to ask, or I can just do it whenever I get a chance, or whenever people ask, or whatever I create. I can just go for it.
Right. What really impressed me on the walk that I was on, and having learned then a little bit about your backstory, was here was a guy giving me a walking tour who wasn't from here. He's a transplant,
Right.
and you told so many in depth, wonderful stories of this town that is your adopted home.
Mm.
I find that fascinating. Was it just the history? Once you started digging into the history, was it that you fell in love with these stories and now I imagine now you probably have a very strong personal connection to this town, to Bellefonte and Center County, even though your roots aren't don't run very deep here.
Right. Right.
Uh, so can you talk a little bit about like what that was like, and like where do you even start? So here was you're looking at you who had you live here, and now you're going to start giving tours. there's a lot of information you have to learn, to walk around and sound like you know what you're talking about and give facts and all this. How did that? I mean, what did you just sit and read, or did you interview people, or how did you collect all these stories that you tell when you give a walking tour?
Yeah, that's a yeah, fair point. So I'll go back to yeah, I did move here, and I've been here a while now, but I feel like you could go um anywhere, and any place is going to have a treasure of local history. So I think I'm really happy to be here. I don't want to be anywhere else, but and maybe I've thought about this before, is maybe I never had a hometown. So growing I moved a lot, and now that I'm here and I have my own child, and he's 4 years old, and I'm putting my roots here, like, on intentionally, I feel very, like, connected to this area. And I'm very proud to be in it. And just maybe it's because I didn't have a hometown that I had when I was growing up. But um, the it is a lot to learn, and I think one of the big things I did my master's degree in history, and I had to do an internship. And so I did the internship with Center County Library and Historical Museum, and they're so awesome. They still help me. I mean, I spend most of my time researching in the PA room in Bellefonte. They have an archive. They have so many treasures in there, and documents and photos and postcards and microfilm, maps, whatever. And there's been so many people before me. There's Bellefonte has a lot of people who are proud of their history. So there's been books written. A lot of times I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I find the right book. But I do a lot of my own research too, like I said, in at the historical museum. But I did an internship there, and that's when I really got the bug bad, because I was going through these dusty boxes in the attic, and they wanted to know they wanted some help kind of inventorying things and figuring out what's in there. And I was finding letters signed by, like, President William McKinley to a judge in Bellefonte. And I was just like, in like 1901, or like, a couple years before he was assassinated, I'm looking at his signature in an attic in a home in Bellefonte, and I'm just like blown away. And I just really wanted to know what else is in there. And I felt like this stuff is, and just like in any archive, it's in a box. It's on a shelf, and unless someone speaks up for it and brings it out to the people, it's just gonna sit in a box. Like, so it really felt like a mission I had. Um, in a way, like, I love teaching. And I feel like that's my calling in general. But this is something that really is kind of I really enjoy.
Hmm. So you give these walking tours of Belfont, and you have a couple different themes, correct? I know I was on your Civil War one, which was fascinating. I'm a huge Civil War buff. But what other types of tours do you give?
Yeah, I do. Like, this fall, I'll be doing a ghost tour. I did one last year, obviously in the fall. That's, just kind of went more in the entertainment category, rather than serious history, I think. But it's still fun, and we're still getting that stuff from newspapers, and all that. So it's fun. So I'll look for that. Bellefonte does a thing called Friday in the Font. It should be on that day. It's not scheduled yet, but it should be October 30th. So if anybody's interested. And then I do regularly. I do other tours in town, just downtown tours, basically, and I can go to different parts of town depending on the interest of the group. But yeah, so I've done cemetery tours. I kind of specialize in Union Cemetery, which is where we were in, and
Yep.
we were in there, obviously. So and it's got, you can tell the whole town's history from there, really. But and then I'm recently doing more waterfront stuff down by by Spring Creek. And I recently did a kind of a beverage tour, taste of history tour. It was just kind of a new thing where we were actually selling tickets to that, and collaborating with, um, like, Big Spring Distillery and Downtown Bellefonte Inc. And that went really well. I think people enjoyed it. They got to go on a little history tour, a little 30-minute ish tour around the park, and then go back to Big Spring and have fun. So it was cool.
Yeah, I followed along on social media for that. It did look like a really good time, and I think you're right. You get people interested a little bit in history, and then you reward them with
Yeah.
fermented and distilled beverages. That's something to always look forward to towards the end of a trip. What do people say on when you're giving these tours? I mean, do people really? Is it a lot of people walk away saying, "Geez, I never, I looked at that building." Every day of my life and I never knew X, or I mean, are most people truly do you think you get you like bite that history bug for some people on these tours?
Yeah.
What kind of reactions do you get from people?
Yeah, I hope so. I think I have. Yeah, I've gotten that reaction before, where they're like, I've passed that block. I've lived here my whole life, and I've never heard that. That's a huge compliment. People have said that, and I just, I think that's I'm doing. It means I'm doing something right. Um, I've had good feedback. I mean, of course, not everybody's gonna have the, shower me with compliments or anything. But that's always nice when a local does say that. And then I've had people, from out of town too. They were just like, and it's fun. I meet the best. I meet, part of the fun for me is meeting people like yourself and connecting with you and with people from other places or wherever they're from. And just learning from them because people have asked questions where I don't know, and I'm like, wow, that's a good question, and I look into it and I learn more about it. Or they will tell me like, hey, yeah, where I'm from, we have furnaces too, and and we'll kind of be able to compare notes a little bit. So it's really fun to meet new people and get that positive feedback. So yeah, um, I think I'm doing something right for the most part.
No, I absolutely do too. I'd love to see other small towns, embrace this idea of taking pride in their story and have their story told. I think, especially here in central Pennsylvania, we have a lot of history, of course, and I just don't think it's being told. It's not being brought to life. Yes, we have historical markers, along the road, and there might be the occasional town museum or county historical society, but I think all too often for most Americans, uh, you people overlook that stuff because
Yeah,
it's not on the forefront of people's minds. And I agree with you that you're going to make your strongest connection with your local history because you have a tie to that place, especially if it's, where your family's been for generations. And I think it is those are the stories that everyone should be hearing. And I'm not saying everyone's going to love history, of course, but I think you're
right.
going to get a lot more people interested in and taking pride in where
Hmm.
they're from if they know some of these awesome stories. Um, and
Yeah,
I applaud you on doing the work that you do. I hope that maybe people listening to this podcast can start to nudge people in their hometowns and their local historical societies to say, hey, let's put on some walking tours and get people interested. And I think it's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And I truly believe that. And I just think
yeah,
what you're doing is great. It's great for Bellefonte, but it's also great for Center County as a whole. I'm sure you get people on tours that are not from Bellefonte, that are coming in. Maybe they're here for a Penn State event
yeah,
or something, and they hear about, oh, you can do a walking tour. I'll sign up for that.
yeah,
So you're also a brand ambassador for the town and also for the county at large. And I wanted to applaud you for that because you do not only do you do all those things, but you do it really, really well. So I mean,
yeah. Thank you.
congrats, Matt. Really. Um, so
Thank
what are
you.
your any future plans or things coming up with these walking tours, or what's something that you'd really love to be able to do someday, if money wasn't an option or
Mm.
anything like that?
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, there's some things in the works right now. There's going to be likely another tasting tour, taste of history tour with another establishment in Bellefonte. So look for that. I'll the details I'll post soon. But basically, that'll be fun. So hopefully in October, so you kind of have the fall vibe going on, and that'll be a good time. And then the ghost tour is coming up. But I'm trying to thinking bigger picture. I'm trying to do more video content. I've been working on a few projects right now where I'm trying to, get to other parts of Center County, or honestly wherever I can go. This area, including Clinton County and Blair and everything is so interconnected regionally. It's not it's hard. You can't look at Bellefonte as an isolated historical phenomenon. It's connected to Tyrone. It's connected to Snowshoe. It's connected to also. It's really um, as local is it is important to be local, but nothing is isolated. So it's all interdependent. And yeah, it's nice to learn about other areas, and then that really helps me understand the county history better and state history better and even national history because you're seeing it from the bottom up. You're seeing instead of from the top down, you're seeing it. Oh, that's the railroad did this to this town. I get it. The importance of so yeah, so I'm looking to get around more and like I've gone to Phillipsburg and I've gone to Moshannon, Black Moshannon Park and Poe Valley and I've got some footage that I'm putting together and so look for that to come out soon and if anybody is interested in, like you said, getting into tours, I'd be happy to help and promote it for kind of encourage you to do it and also work with you locally to get that done.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, Matt, we close out every episode with 10 quick questions that I ask all my guests,
Oh
just
boy.
to pick your brain. Oh, it's not a test. You're going to be fine. Okay, here we go. Question number one. What's your morning drink of choice?
Coffee,
And how do you take your coffee?
black, just black.
Black. That is
Yeah,
the most popular answer. I'm always
yeah.
surprised by that when people say that. Okay, number two. Who is a go to musical artist or group for you?
Go-to musical artist or group. I mentioned to you because I think you would appreciate this. There's a bluegrass kind of band called Vinegar Creek Constituency out of Lancaster, excuse me, Lancaster County, um, and from Marietta, PA. So I really like them a lot.
Let's say their name one more time. So we'll give them a quick free plug for anybody out there that's into folk music and bluegrass. What was the name of the
Yeah,
band again?
Vinegar Creek Constituency.
There we go.
Yeah,
Sounds great. We'll
yeah,
have to check them out.
yeah.
Um, number three. I'm going to be interested in what your answer for this one is. What movie can you watch over and over again and it never gets old?
That's a good one. Um, I like that movie, the new True Grit with
Oh, yeah.
yeah, was it Jeff? Was it Daniels? I don't know. No, that's fine. Anyways, the newer True Grit. I liked John Wayne and all that, but the newer one I've watched like 10 times. I think it's the Coen brothers are really really good at what they do.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Coen brothers
Yeah.
too. And this is a side question. I wasn't going to ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. For your money, which is your favorite historical movie or movie that deals with history?
Master and Commander.
Oh, really? Yeah, I enjoyed that film too. I really did. And it's one that like I think most people, I don't know how many people saw it, back in
Yeah,
the day when it came out, but that
yeah,
film is beautifully shot and
yeah,
there were
yeah,
scenes in that where I almost got seasick, I think watching it, the way that boat was being tossed around. That's a really good film. Yeah.
yeah.
What's your favorite Civil War era movie?
Well, I think Cold Mountain's really good. Yeah, I don't know. Of course, I've watched, Gettysburg and all, and I like the Shara book,
Mhm.
on Killer Angels. That was one of the things that got me really into history, when I first read it a while ago. And a lot of people say that, so I think it's, credit to that book.
Mhm. Okay. What is the last thing you read?
The last thing I read, like literally,
Yeah.
I was reading one of the letters you let me borrow. I was reading
Oh,
that
okay.
that that I thought you might quiz me on them, so
No.
yeah, so I was reading the diary of William C. Myers a little bit today. But
Oh,
I've been
good.
I've been reading a lot of obviously local history. I'm reading a book about snowshoe right now, and yeah.
Is there a book you can recommend, for people here in Central Pennsylvania to check out if they wanna learn more about local history?
Yeah, there's several. There depends how historical you want to get. Um, the John Blair Lynn book. from 1883 is considered the Bible of Center and Clinton County history. So you might
Uh-huh.
be interested in that. You've probably seen it around. But that is straight history. You know, it's not like a narrative. The Center County Historical Society puts out these center heritage books that have like basically articles in them about different topics, and they're a treasure. I mean, they're like they'll have an article about uh, forges, or an article about toll gates, or an article about the stagecoach, and they're all really good. But these books are hard to find. That's one of the things that people ask me, and I'm like, you can go to the PA room and read them, or you can see if they're at the library, but they're not really for sale. So I don't know if I can help that situation or not, but
Right. Well,
yeah,
I think you can help it when you write your first book, and
yeah.
you're gonna make it real reader friendly, and, get on that, Matt. Hurry up now, come on.
I'll try. Yeah, that's on the to-do list.
Alright, question number 5. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Oh, I'm just pepperoni, just straight up.
Okay. Number 6, laying on the beach or going for a hike?
Hike, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 7, you have invited me over for dinner. What are you making?
Oh, well, that's a good question. I might try to impress you with my uh I really it's just a go-to. I like to make grill some chicken thighs, the
Uh-huh.
boneless chicken thighs, nothing too complicated. And I like to grill some like broccoli and burn it a little bit for you with
Ah,
with some seasoning on it. So
that sounds good to me. That
yeah, that's
sounds
what I
good
might
to me.
what I might make you.
Alright, number 8. What is a dream vacation destination of yours?
Oh man, I've always wanted to. I mean, there's a lot of places I'd like to go, but I really want to. I see myself and the family getting in like a RV or something and going to like all the battlefields, like
Hmm,
going to Vicksburg and going out west, like going everywhere.
that'd be cool.
That's on the to-do list.
Yeah, sounds good. Number 9. What's something you're afraid of?
Oh, well, now we're getting deep.
Well, the go-to answer for a lot of people has been either spiders or snakes, so
I was gonna say failure.
well, no, that's
I'm,
good. Hey, I
I'm scared
I
of
hear
failure.
you.
I
I
think
hear
that's
you.
common.
That's something to be afraid of. That's a good answer. All right, last question. What job other than the one that you have would be something that you would love to do?
Hmm. I think I'd like to, if I had the skills, which I wish I did, to like restore old homes. So if I
Oh.
had, yeah, that would kind of relate to what I do, but it'd be cool to do it physically myself. It'd be cool.
That would be neat. That would be
Yeah.
neat. Well, Matt, it's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast. Real quick, tell everybody how they can learn more about about local Historia.
Yeah, social media. I'm most active, with Instagram, with local Historia underscore com, so localhistoria.com, and then Facebook, just local Historia. So I do have a website, localhistoria.com, that everything's kind of posted on there as well. But I'm pretty active on the Instagram, so if you can message me there, or you can email, all of my contact information's there. You can request tours. I'll try to make it happen. I'm pretty busy as a teacher right now, but I can try to make it happen on a weekend if it works out. And or you can see what events are next on Instagram and Facebook.
I will link all of your stuff in the show notes for anyone that's getting this and seeing it, so they can link right to your stuff. And having been personally on one of Matt's tours, I can't recommend it enough. Whether you like history or you think history is boring and dull, he will make it interesting. Matt does an awesome job, so I highly recommend checking out one of his tours if you're here in the central Pennsylvania area. And even if you're not, it's a reason to come visit central Pennsylvania. Hotel rooms are pretty cheap right now with everything going on, and you can take advantage of one of his awesome walking tours of downtown Bellefonte. So, Matt, thanks again for coming on. I truly appreciate it, and hopefully you'll get some new customers out of this podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Good talking to you too. Well, everyone, thank you for listening to Doug's Front Porch, a conversational podcast with your host, Doug Maidenford. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for @Doug's Front Porch. Also, please feel free to tell all your friends about the show. I'll see you all next time on my front porch.